Welcome to the Heen View, a podcast series which interviews a range of sport club representatives and leading professional sport club personnel during the COVID-19 shutdown period. We find out what these people are doing during the current health crisis with some of our most popular winter sports seasons postponed. I'm Mark Heen, and today I'm joined by my co-host Mark Stone. Now, Stoney, it's a big thanks to AWA Alliance Bank, which has sponsored the Heen View podcast episode 33 today. So we're 1/3 of our way to 100, but it's not about bringing up the century or anything like that. But obviously it's a very impressive guest today, someone that's done a lot in sport and someone that's really knows a lot about coaching and administration and playing wise at a high level. So we look forward to this person.
We do. I wrote a little note here, a sports person who's done it all, been leadership programs and managerial programs, and will be able to talk to us about a whole different range of conversation pieces. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Today's guest is a prominent sports administrator and was appointed Chief Executive Officer of Basketball Geelong, now known as Geelong United Basketball, in late 2018. He completed a Masters of Business Administration and has lectured in business management at Trobe University. He played 74 AFL games with Geelong and Richmond from 1990 to 1996 and was the Melbourne Senior AFL coach in 2012 and 2013. He worked as the Essendon AFL Game Performance Manager from 2014 to 2018 and has also served as an assistant coach under Mick Moldhouse at Collingwood as well. He coached Ocean Grove to 4 senior premierships, that's BFL senior premierships, from 2000 to 2003, and was a product of St Joseph's College in Geelong and was a player and a coach at the club. He's an integral part of the K-Rock Footy AFL radio commentary team in his role as special comments. We welcome to the Heen View podcast, Geelong United Basketball Chief Executive Officer, Mark Neeld. Welcome, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, Mark. Nice to see you both.
There's a lot of us here today, but I guess in some ways you're a very important person when it comes to administration in this town, particularly as we are in Geelong. And there's a lot going on, not just with COVID and that sort of thing, but there's been a real pause on this season in terms of all sport, particularly in your case when you actually have to work from a stadium. You've been forced to, I suppose, work from home. What's that been like, particularly as now we're sort of 7 months from March this year, and when did you get the call? And also too, we've just found out that there's going to be a return to play competition start date on November 30, subject to the DHHS as well. So there's a lot going on there, and hopefully you guys will be returning soon. So what are your thoughts?
There's a bit going on, or in some cases nothing going on, which is obvious two ends of the spectrum. I should start by saying, we'll talk about the challenges faced by basketball in the perspective of what's happening worldwide, or now, what's happening in Adelaide. What's happening for us is frustrating in that environment, but in certainly no way gets to the level of some of the things the other people are struggling with around the world. We're really fortunate that in Australia, all the governments and medical people are able to clamp down as quickly as they can. And although Victoria, we've certainly had our frustrations, I think with some of the numbers that we're seeing at the moment, or lack of numbers, that's fantastic. Mark, for us, March the 13th was when we shut down. That was fairly common in community sport and elite level sport at that time, around about that date. We did get back to play competition for 2 weeks for juniors, so it was very much a smaller fragment. We're back at the moment, but in a very, very restricted manner. We have some training going on. The restrictions that we're under, irrespective of size of stadium, whether in one of our stadiums or at AWA Alliance Bank Stadium, we have 6 courts and they have 20 young people in there at any one time. And at the Geelong Arena, who has 4 courts, same deal. So we're just seeing a slow return. Again, with that little world of basketball, it's been frustrating, but there's many more things around the world that are far more frustrating and far more serious. But the first thing from our point of view, like everybody else, was to reach out. We have 10 permanent staff members, and to reach out to them to ensure that they were okay and to do what we can in that situation. It's very much a colleague relationship, or it's talking to the board about the staff. It's very much an employer-employee relationship. So there's a number of things that needed to be done there. And through the help of the JobKeeper program, we've been able to keep 10 people engaged in employment. They're on reduced hours, but they've been able to use their time productively and just being able to engage one another, albeit over Zoom, 99.9% of the time. That's been really important for us, I think, as a staff. A couple of those staff members who deal directly with volunteers have been doing similar things with our volunteers, and also some of the casual staff. That's been well documented throughout Australia. As you were a casual employee, in some cases, you've borne the brunt, particularly financially, financially and in some cases from a mental wellbeing perspective of this pandemic from an economic point of view. So there's a number of things we've been doing in consultation with some other groups around Geelong to try and do what we can.
March 11, I think you said, to this period now is, so most of your job's been about partnership building. It's AWA who've been obviously a sponsor of the program and building those things. So that's spent most of your time just connecting with your partners and making sure the staff are okay. And what are the things you've been doing since COVID hit?
It was interesting because Geelong United Basketball, as you mentioned before, which is the formation or partnership of Corio Bay Basketball Association and Basketball Geelong, was formed, started operating on October the 1st last year. So we just got going and then it's a pause, but did provide us with the time just to reinforce the purpose of the new association, make sure that, the little I's being dotted and T's being crossed about vision statements and policies and things. So it was quite good in terms of that. Basketball Victoria, which is our governing body, they've also gone through a staff restructure. They took the opportunity to do that. Some of it was coming and things such as that have been brought forward due to COVID. There's some COVID restrictions that all business that will face, whether they're in sport or whether they're in finance, whatever the case may be. So there's been a lot of working with Basketball Victoria. The concept would be that there's nearly 170 basketball associations around Victoria. We're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, and it's not always just about having the numbers. It's making sure that you're also striving to have the quality. So we've spent a bit of time with Basketball Victoria really aligning our structure and our programs to what they now want to achieve and making sure that it is a one sport mentality, not only for Geelong, but that feeds into a one sport mentality for the state. So we've been heavily into that. Mark, you mentioned also reaching out to our partners. Now, as a community sport organisation, there are so many aspects to basketball and so many different people that are involved. We have the participants right from Aussie Hoops, which could be a 6-year-old, all the way through to social basketball, which in some cases is people that have retired that are still enjoying running around. The need where we can engage the members. We have 19 member clubs where we can again engaging presidents and delegates to see what they're up to and if we can assist how they're coping. Our partners are really important, obviously, in terms of the money that they bring in and the support that they give us. It does come from the local community and there's a lot of involvement with basketball. Our domestic competition, the day we shut down we had 800 teams playing on a weekly basis and there were some nights where there's waiting lists, and if you think about that's just the participants out there running around, and at that level most teams have 7 or 8 players, so you're talking about a large number of participants. So it's important for us to get out and reach as many as we can, and we've got some amazing backers who have an involvement with the Geelong community, have an involvement with the sport, and then have an involvement with basketball.
Given the infancy of the name, in a sense, Geelong United Basketball, and it was previous as Basketball Geelong, and you've got that name, and then I'm not sure what the connection is to the Melbourne United Club as well, but obviously when we think about how new the brand is in that sense, and you mentioned about the JobKeeper program and finance, and we've talked to businesses, not just sports clubs, about perhaps, it could be a lolly shop in Port Arlington or whatever, where they get to spend more time on their website or their Facebook page during COVID and all that. As an organisation, is there a mantra? Yes, we know that you're working from home, but how does it brand itself? And can you make any dollars during this period because you're such a new brand during COVID?
The way that we're looking at branding, you can have a go at that in 2 ways. You can have a predetermined brand that you try and achieve, or that you can agree on a certain set of behaviours and a vision and a philosophy that you want to go about, not only playing the game, but whether or not you're in administration or you're coaching or you're a club president. And then what happens is that becomes your brand. And it's simply put, this is the way that we do things, or this is the way we've agreed to do things. Now, what those things are differ depending on the role of the organisation. One of the key question or the key statement that we were using when Corio Bay Basketball Association and Basketball Geelong came together was, let's put the sport of basketball out the front. Put it first. All the participants, irrespective of what your role is, we're going to get behind the sport of basketball in our region and push it into the future. And that is, we're really proud of what we were able to do. And certainly a lot of the work started well before I commenced. It was, for me, coming in new, seeing the lay of the land, so to speak, speaking to people, and asking them a lot of questions. What's your purpose in a respectful manner? Why do you do what you do? And meeting people from both associations and both boards and coaches and people involved with the development program, what they were doing, the purpose of what they're doing was exactly the same. So being now able to combine programs, combine finances, combine coaching resources, refereeing resources is really important for the sport. Change is something that needs to not only be managed well, you need to continually look at what is happening, be able to show people what the vision is and help them connect themselves as being a part of that vision, but also help them connect how their role and what they're doing is contributing to that. At times, that can be challenging, but at the same time, now where we are, it's very beneficial.
Mark, I'm curious about this because it's how big is the game of basketball in Geelong? Because the way you're talking about participation, we talk about participation in AFL, but participation in basketball, how big is it?
I'll throw some numbers, Mark. For me, it's enormous. So, for example, I gave you that number before of 800 teams participate on a weekly basis in our domestic competition. The teams, on average, have 7 players per team. So that's a big number. In addition to that, we run pre-competition development programs, which are called Aussie Hoops. Now, I don't have the exact numbers, but you would see, hundreds of little tackers, if you like, running around, enjoying throwing the ball, trying to catch it, dribble, learn all the skills while having some fun. We also have a development pathway, which is both a development and a representative pathway, which plays in the Victorian Junior Basketball League. We've just started trials for those, and we have approximately 500 people that are trialling for positions in that program from under 12s all the way through until under 21s. We also have a senior representative pathway that we have 6 teams in, so 3 male and 3 females. For this upcoming VJBL season, or for this upcoming our development and representative pathway, we could have in the vicinity of 56 teams. Add that to our 800 domestic plus our other programs, and it's a big number. Like we did a couple of things last year just after we formed, and we were looking at doing a head count of the people that on average came through the stadium on a weekly basis. So we had some professional people come out and they do use their algorithms and do a bit of a head count and then have a look at anyway. So it came out at approximately 7,500 people a week for the 40 school weeks of the year that go through. Now, having come from footy, if you look at the amount of people that visit Cardinia Park on a yearly basis, that's actually right up there. So it's quite fascinating when you dig down into the numbers.
So when we come to think of not just the participant level in a regional city, I mean, I've lived in other regional cities around in other states and also Victoria. When you think of Bendigo and Ballarat and even places like Albury, Wodonga and all that, basketball is always a huge sport in those regional towns. And one thing that's been on the agenda with the council election lately has been a new facility. Now, what intrigues me about this facility is there is a vacant patch of land which is in Grovedale on Barwari Road, and I understand that you met with some of the, councillors at the time or in the lead up to the election. Can you maybe just go unpack in depth about that potential site and the growth and the need to have more indoor basketball courts in Geelong? And I suppose one thing that intrigues me about that is it appears that it's very close to the existing site where AWA Alliance Bank Stadium is.
So there's a couple of things within this answer that we probably need to touch on. One, there is currently an indoor sports stadium strategy that is taking place, and that the lead people on that, as it should be, the City of Greater Geelong. Now, within that study, there's all the indoor sports that are played in Geelong being consulted and contributing to that. Now, that's about understanding for the whole of the Greater Geelong region what facilities we actually have, who accesses them now, do we need more, are they accessible at the times that the sports need them? So that's important too. For example, if there's some facilities not being used, what are the reasons? Is it travel? Is it cost to a not-for-profit association? Things like that. So there's that going on. As part of that study, there's certainly been some discussions had between basketball and netball, from basketball and netball within the Geelong region, and then included in the discussions again of the City of Greater Geelong, and also Netball Victoria and Basketball Victoria. Look, that's very much a vision to have a look at what those two sports in particular could look like into the future. The need for stadiums, and I must point out that when we're talking about that idea specifically, it's not about replacing any stadium that currently exists in Geelong. It's in addition to. I mentioned before, if you look at the most important part of any sport really is to, particularly one that has the ability to have a pathway right from Aussie Hoops, so your 6-year-olds, all the way through to elite level within the one city. You must make sure that your core program, which is the domestic competition and the development of the juniors, is catered for extremely well. Now, at the moment, happy to speak speak on behalf of basketball, there are nights when we have waiting lists. We can't get access to courts. Now, we need to do what we can, work with the City of Greater Geelong, the state government, the federal government to sort that out. That's our first priority. Then at the other end, I've got 3 children. They're now left home. They do their own thing. And many people who have had kids come through the sporting pathway in Geelong will be able to perhaps remember these days where your children get to a certain level or a certain age and you've got to get in the car to go to Melbourne every Tuesday night or Wednesday night or Friday night or the weekend. Now, sometimes that's essential because it's about competition, and that's okay. We do find, though, in certain sports in Geelong, it's simply because we don't have the facilities. One of the things that, I'm happy to have a discussion with anybody is that a area the size of Geelong and with the amazing things that our region has to offer, we should be able to offer people the opportunity to stay at home, so to speak, and play their chosen sport to the level that they're capable of. And one day, hopefully sooner rather than later, if we're able to, as 2 sports, come together and play a part in getting a facility here that can cater for kids at the higher stage of netball and the higher stage of basketball, and if there's other sports that want to join in, I think that would be fantastic for our region.
Mark, how was the transition from football to basketball, and what's the most important thing in a sports business? And I'll probably go many different directions to answer.
Yes, I can. The transition, well, I had a bit of a pit stop, if you want to use that term, at university, just lecturing out there. So the transition, look, I'd say the majority of what you do, whether or not in your case, you're doing podcasts or you're working in the media, or if you're working in sport or business or education, it's about relationships. That does not change. I see my role here, although at the beginning it was certainly one of managing change and doing those things that I mentioned before. My role is to create, it's not simple, but you can explain it simply. It's to create an environment where everybody else can do one of 2 things: do their job really well and or participate in the sport of basketball really well. Now, I can see the basketball courts, and occasionally I'll go and watch what's going on, and it's great to see so many kids smiling out there playing, or seniors running around enjoying themselves, or if the Super Cats or the Stingrays are playing, that's wonderful. But I'm certainly not going out there talking to the coaches about how they should be, instructing a layup or anything like that. My job is to help the coaches just focus on that by making sure their environment is being sorted out. So that's the way that I do it. And again, very, very similar to the other parts of industries that I've worked in, whether that be working at a university back in the days of teaching at Geelong College or working at, Collingwood or Melbourne or Essendon. They can be similar. AFL within, the state of Victoria and a couple of other states in Australia, certainly that grabs the media's attention, and there's lots of people that want to talk about it and read about it. So you don't get that as much in basketball. But again, the similarities are enormous in terms of what you actually do on a day-to-day basis.
Mark, when we come to think of some of the things that you've done in your career, obviously people know about your AFL coaching, and particularly even more recent years, what you've been doing with game development at Essendon, and I'd been in touch with you through a role at the Ocean Grove Voice, and how that, I suppose, you saw a different level, not just with coaching, but you're involved in administration. If you look back at it now, we're now in 2020, and yes, we've had the COVID and we're still going through it, but is it nice to be outside the AFL bubble, because you've been subject to a lot of intense scrutiny as a coach, and then I follow Essendon being Essendon and what's happened there post-saga. I mean, do you get a chance to look at the reflection and think, it helps me mould me as a person, and some of those experiences that I've gone through have been hard on myself and my family, but now I see another side of sport and the administration side. Are you thankful that you've had those experiences now at AFL level upon reflection going into a different sport and a different hat on as an administrator?
The AFL is a wonderful industry, and one of the fantastic things about it, and again, I've worked in education at school and then university, as I said before, and now in basketball and footy. I'm going to make a guess, or an educated guess, that even if you're working in other areas, other industries, your job is to be the best in the world at what you do. With that comes an enormous amount of reflection, and the whole organisation is continually looking back at what you did. The difference I've found when you're working at the top level, you always look back at what you did, work out what your learnings are, and you're quickly planning forward. And that's your evolution. That's the expectation of when you are striving to be the best on a daily basis. Sometimes I'll say to people that, you hear that comment, there's a lot of lines that get thrown around and sometimes people roll their eyes. And one of them is, it's not for everybody. And that's exactly right. You might be the person who has to hand out the Guernseys to the players for training. Now, the expectation is that there's a lot behind that to get them ready to get there. You need to be the best in the world at that every day, if that's what your role is. And if you're a statistician at a training session, you're the best in the world at what you do. You are providing the world's best insights for the coaches and the players every time they train. There's also a lot of time that's taken to appoint people. I think that's really important. You need to get the right people, whatever that means for your organisation, and then you've got to make sure they're in the right role. So that is a fantastic experience. You can't control the past, but you can look at it to learn, and you can't control the future either, but what you can control is your preparation and your planning. And that's really important. When you are involved with an industry that is scrutinised heavily on a daily basis, they're the things you learn, and they're really important. And for me, they're really, really important, and at the same time, enjoyable.
Sensational way to put it, Mark. It was brilliant. Who are your inspirations and your mentors? Who are the people that you look to?
Yeah, I do. I keep in contact with a number of people, which is wonderful for all manner of reasons. I do have one person that I use now. I suppose the right title would be a corporate coach, if you like. He's a fellow by the name of Dr. John Edwards. Now, I find him to be, amazing he's very challenging, and he could ask a question like the two of you have done, and I might come up with an answer. And if I haven't given it enough thought, or if he believes that it's been just an off-the-cuff answer with not deep thought or learning, he'll let me know in no uncertain terms. He's fantastic in ensuring that what I'm talking about or what I'm planning to do or what I'm reviewing and focusing forward is actually aligned to what I want to be, if it's aligned to the organisation that I'm working with and it's actually going to achieve what we're going to achieve. I find that particularly useful. There's a group of 4 guys that this is one of the silver linings of COVID shutdown. There's a group of 4 of us who have worked together over time at various different places, and we've formed a little fitness group. There's a certain number of exercise sessions that need to be done in a week. There's a certain time that you must put in your results, and then there is instant feedback given by the other 3 as to your performance. That helps everyone get through, not only from a physical point of view, but also a mental well-being point of view. A lot of people will gravitate towards people both from a professional point of view and also family. Like I mentioned before, I've got 3 daughters. They've all moved out of home these days. My wife and I like to keep as connected as what we can with the kids without going over the top. We have one daughter who lives in Western Australia in Perth. That's been challenging for us, not being able to see her. But again, everyone has their own little challenge. We're fully across, like I said before, some of the impacts of COVID, and these days of technology, we still get to talk to her a fair bit.
I want to get your thoughts quickly on Mick Malthouse. You were cutting your teeth into coaching at AFL senior level through that experience at Collingwood.
My time at Collingwood, I love my time at Collingwood. It is an amazing organisation to be a part of. And again, irrespective of the role that you have there, if you are a part of Collingwood, you are certainly embraced. It's difficult to describe, but it is amazing to experience. And look, I love Mick. Mick taught me an enormous amount about not just being a coach, but about life and relationships and loyalty. He's one of those people, again, with not wanting to use too many cliches, sometimes people get described as they'll forget more about what they're doing than you will ever learn in your lifetime. I think Mick's one of those people. He's been around a long time. And if you can not only survive, but thrive at the top of your game, it's something that's done at the highest quality in the world for a period of nearly 3 decades or over. I think you're doing a lot right. Mick was fantastic for the Collingwood Footy Club, and he was fantastic. We catch up every now and then. We certainly do bump into each other at footy. Mick is on another radio station doing special comments, and there's always a little bit of banter. Down at Cardinia Park, we're actually in radio booths next to each other, and they've got glass windows. So that's a bit of fun. I've been fortunate in my time to work with some amazing people, just as in terms of their character and also their achievements, but it's different in terms of those two things. Very much the people that have fascinating achievements. One of the things that I've learned, your net worth as a person is not connected to your net worth as an achievement as an athlete. That's certainly something that comes shining through when I get to it. And it's hard, it's hard to name them, but other people that I lean on regularly just to see how they're going, and they do the same to me, and then to talk about challenges we may face. Neil Craig is a wonderful person. I had a great relationship with Craigie, and John Worsfold I just find to be one of the great human beings in world sport. I get along with those guys as well enormously.
Now, just a quick one, Mark. I know we've got to go soon. So you and I have something in common, Mark, is that I worked at K-Rock for a year, and I know that you have a lot of fun. I know King and the boys do a great job there. You enjoy that?
Look, it's fantastic, Mark. I really enjoy my time at K-Rock. It is great. We are certainly getting a good following, and I had the great fortune this year, again, a silver lining of COVID, being able to be special comments for every one of the Geelong games. Love watching Geelong play. I love the game of footy. Love watching them play. Love commenting on, the role of special comments with, what I've done in footy. It's just trying to explain to the listener what is actually happening. To sit there and do it with Ben Cassinelli and Tom King, two ex-St Joey's, although I think Tom was well after Ben and I had finished, but we always managed to get St Joseph's into the call, so that gets a bit of laugh. You know, the Geelong Footy Club, you know, I grew up barracking for Geelong. I am from here. I had the great privilege of playing for them for 4 years. So to go back and watch them play weekly and have a bit of a chat to some of the players and the coaches, I really enjoy.
Alice had a fantastic season with the West Coast Fever. With the netball, you couldn't go and watch her. You could only probably watch it on the TV. You get up to much?
No, not much. I've been sitting in the chair that I've been sitting in basically every day since March the 13th. But my wife is a primary school teacher, so we had a bit of fun and games when she was assisting the young kids learn remotely. There was that period of time where there was an AFL game every day. I love that. And then the NBA was on, and then there was every possible sport known to the human race. I think I've been trying to stream on the TV. I've been in that group of 4 fitness club, which is a bit of fun. And also, look, I'm excited what Geelong United Basketball can do for the sport of basketball in Geelong. And I've been busy with that. I'm a bit of a reader, so trying to read as many things and advice as to how you can get through COVID and how you can come out the other side and how you can set yourself up and also your organisation to be having positive experiences. And we can see some light at the end of the tunnel. We're hoping on Sunday that we get some confirmation from the Premier about when we can open and we can get everyone back to playing, and we can have a go at continuing our development as an organisation and also have a go to achieving some of the things that we want to.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Stonehenge View podcast. Gary Ablett Jr. book's out too. We had the guest on the other week. It's probably something else to doing during the period of shutdown, and good luck with the resumption of basketball. We understand it's November 30, but we'll see how it goes subject to approval. It's been great to have you on episode 33 to talk about those things, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So to Mark and also Mark, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, good stuff. Mark Stone, what a great guest. Mark Neeld is, and really unpacked a lot what's happening in the sporting world from an administrator and coaching perspective. And
he's inspirational, actually. It's a great story, great chat. He should write a book one day, but we'll see what happens there.
Well, there you go. You can get in contact with the program, the Stonehenge View. This episode's been sponsored by AWA Alliance Bank, so we thank them for their services. And obviously, AWA Alliance Bank Stadium is in Geelong, so get on down and check out the basketball when it's back up and running, and the Geelong Super Cats. You can check out the Stonehenge View on Facebook. Type in the Stonehenge View into Facebook and Instagram. We're also on Apple Podcasts, our launching platforms Podbean, and we're on Spotify and YouTube channel. And the Stonehenge View is also on Twitter at Stonehenge View. So till next time, we thank you for your continued company on the Stonehenge View podcast. We'll see you next time for episode 34. Thank you very much.